the memo that Jenna has rejoined RASC in the role of executive director. And she kindly agreed to join the panel today. And she's back at the wheel. This is fantastic.
Thank you, Chris. Nice to be back. And thanks everybody for the warm welcome. It's nice to, we haven't quite got a plan figured out for what we're going to do now being back, but it's really nice to be here again. This is always my favorite part of the job. So it's nice to see everybody and get to hang out.
Well, so the little secret inside RASC is that everybody loves being part of Insider's Guide. So it's like a competition who gets to be the host. So Charles is still around. He still wants to do it. We even talked about luring Samantha back, but she had a pretty busy weekend, so we didn't do that. Yeah,
she was handling all of the General Assembly to her immense credit, considering she didn't work here anymore. So she did a lot of work on that. Alrighty, we are all set on YouTube. Everything's working. I'll do my best to monitor both as I used to. I'm not used to the moves, so please bear with me.
So I'm going to be, I have to walk a bit of a tightrope today, I feel, because I've wanted to do this topic for a long, long time. How do we support and encourage young girls and women to get into astronomy and to stay in astronomy, and either as a hobby, as an outreach person, or in the workforce? And so I thought of Heather because I'd seen Heather do talks on women in astronomy. And then I got introduced to Kat through Param in Montreal, and then Jenna, of course. So, and then down to the bottom, you might see on your Zoom, we've got Denise Chilton, who's part of the Toronto Center. I'm going to kind of let everybody introduce themselves here in a minute. But so what I thought I'd try to do is try to keep quiet most of the time, but maybe moderate or direct the conversation with some questions to everyone to answer. If that sounds okay. So why don't we start out by a bit of an intro to who you are and what your background, like how you got into astronomy in the first place. I think that's a great way to start for each of us, briefly.
Heather, you want to go first?
Sure. You know what? It started when I was a kid, but I didn't realize it. It was later on in life, I decided to try and start dabbling in some of the stuff that interested me as a kid, and it was actually light. And then I ended up finding RASC, and it cascaded into a passionate hobby of mine. But right now I'm Heather Laird. I'm an amateur astronomer. I'm a volunteer with RASC, and I'm currently the Calgary Center's second vice president and social committee chair. And I've been volunteering now with RASC for about a decade now, or just over, I think.
Excellent. Kat?
Lovely. Thank you, Heather. That was great. So my name's Kat. I'm located in Toronto. I'm currently at U of T. I'm in my third year undergraduate degree. I was studying astrophysics for quite some time, and I figured, I really like archaeology. I just love the earth on which we are. And I figured, I'd stay kind of local. So I transferred over into planetary science, and I simply love it. Though there are only like 2 or 3 planetary scientists at U of T, it is something that, is very dear and close to my heart. And it also started out when I was a kid. My dad was really into astrophysics. So he, said, if you can reach the book on the bookshelf, you can read it. So I started doing that. And a lot of those were, math and physics books. And although I couldn't really understand it, I just really enjoyed like looking at all the really cool pictures. And I kind of took it from there, and I am really happy where I'm at. I'm currently doing research on moment tensors and seismology. And though it's not the astrophysics stream that I initially wanted, it is still a subsection of astrophysics that is still really cool and should be explored.
Fantastic. Jenna?
I'm going to ask you later, Kat, what the first word of those 2 words that you use, the one before seismic, is.
Tensor.
Yeah. So I'm Jenna. Like all of us when we're kids, I loved looking up at the sky, and I had a number of opportunities to spend some time in dark skies. And so that really sort of piqued my interest in space. But for me, the draw was always to the water. So I was in marine biology before I was in anything to do with space. And I became more interested in space when I worked at the Ontario Science Centre, and they gave me the keys to the planetarium. And I tell you, if you want to get anybody excited about space, give them the keys to a planetarium, because holy, it is so much fun. Yeah, Chris, you got them. So yeah, if anyone wants keys, maybe I shouldn't volunteer you, Chris, to be the one who gives the keys out. But it's so like to have the planetarium software at your fingertips and be able to just manipulate the universe and explore that way was some of the most fun I ever had. So I got to give talks on it at the Science Centre, and after that I ended up applying to RASC, and I worked at the RESC for 3.5 years, and then I took a break to be a dirtbag rock climber, and here I am again. So I was saying to Heather, I feel a bit of imposter syndrome because it feels like I haven't really been in astronomy that much in the past year. But it's really nice to be back, and space certainly holds a special place in my heart. So thank you, Chris, for
Nice.
inviting me on the show.
Nice. Oh, my pleasure. Denise, tell us a bit about you.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I popped in a little late there. I'm actually between classes. I'm a college English professor, believe it or not. So not an astronomer at all, really, in my real life. But my volunteer work with RASC has led me to becoming the chair of the DDO committee. So for those of you who may not know, the David Dunlap Observatory, or DDO, is home to Canada's largest optical telescope. We have a beautiful Grubb Parsons instrument that has a 74-inch operational diameter mirror. So that's 1.88 meters. It's a massive telescope, and it's lovely to work there. How I got into that, I mean, as a child, I was always interested in the sky and what was going on, what were those stars? Didn't have a lot of access to resources. I lived in a really small rural community that didn't have an astronomy club. And of course, in pre-internet days, it was hard to find things. So a lot of my enthusiasm for astronomy was sort of deferred until adulthood. And believe it or not, it was, acquiring a very small telescope from Value Village that got me back into it. And I started seeking out resources. I found RASC, I found the David Dunlap Observatory. I was so lucky to find Chris, my man, who gave me a wonderful introduction to the night sky. And to the work that RASC does, both as Toronto Centre, which is the center I'm affiliated with, and also specifically at the David Dunlap Observatory in Richmond Hill. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey, and I'm so delighted to be involved in astronomy outreach, especially in sharing that enthusiasm and passion with other people.
Fantastic. So I see a theme. I'll count myself as well that I got the bug when I was really young. So this is great. So we actually have the success side of things. Let's talk a little bit about, some of the other aspects. So why do you think it's important, or would be important, to encourage girls and young women to engage in astronomy, get into the hobby, get into the field of study? Maybe we'll go in the same order. Or Heather, if you don't have your thoughts together, we can pass the baton.
Yeah, no, I have notes.
Oh, good. Go for it.
Well, I think it's important because the work is it's being done to fix the lack of diversity in astronomy, but it still exists on a massive scale. So women are still made to think that sometimes they're not smart enough or aren't worthy enough for such a hobby or academic career, which is not true at all. And the more we continue to encourage girls and women and anyone really to continue just checking things out, the more it's going to grow, which I would like to see happen very soon.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice to, there are certain, I think when it comes to role models in anything that we're doing, sometimes there's people who don't need to see themselves or they find parts of themselves in other people. So like I know I've found parts of myself, and I think part of the reason that I've been successful in this is that I found parts of myself in male role models. But not everybody can do that, and not everybody should be able to do that. We shouldn't be forcing people to do that. And so to have role models for women and girls in this, I think there's trailblazers, and then there's also, we need those people to make the path easier for the next generation as well.
Absolutely. I mean, walking into my first year classes in physics, for example, and seeing maybe only 3 other girls in that room and, 60 guys, and they're all talking to each other, it gets kind of unnerving because, like, sure, you can talk to those guys, but there's some sense of community with people who, are in that atmosphere, who are, there is some form of inclusion, and you really like portray that with just your personality and who you are as a woman. And yeah, like, I mean, being a university student in physics as a girl is very hard because, like, I'm in my office right now. If you go outside in the lounge, all guys. And I mean, as, PhysU president, the Physics Student Union president at U of T, it was very hard for me to get involved and get other women involved and other non-binary folk involved. But if they see you at the forefront, then, like Jenna said, it's easier for them to come forward and really put their foot down and say, hey, I really want to do this as well. So it's important for other people to see you.
Yeah, I think I agree with what everyone's been saying about the importance of representation, right? Particularly for young people to see, role models that reflect who they are in these types of positions is really relevant. And that's one of the great pleasures that I take out of doing the outreach activities with RASC at the DDO is that, we see so many little girls in particular who are coming through with their families. And the huge majority of our presenters and facilitators are men, obviously. But I had that experience just about 3 weeks ago, actually, of seeing, a very small girl, probably 7 or 8 years old, coming through. And, she was enjoying her tour, but like looking around at all of these adult men who are, can be a little intimidating. And then as I was explaining things and introducing the telescope and showing telescope motions and things, I literally saw her face light up and the transformation take place, where it was that moment of recognition where she's like, holy smokes, I could do this too. There's somebody who is like me, who is doing this really cool thing. And that was, it was exciting to me to see that. But I think that for me really captured that moment or that idea of why it's so important to have that kind of representation, because you can see people's ideas on their face. You can see as their ideas transform about what place they have in this field, which is really wonderful.
The more representation there is too, the more likely that the girls that see women in those roles are going to go and be in those roles themselves, and then we'll hit that critical mass of like, this isn't just for the boys or whatever.
Yeah. One of the thoughts I had in looking at these questions was, so many of the elementary school teachers are women, and if many more of them were into astronomy, how fantastic would that be? The kids are so hungry for astronomy and space at that age. And yet a lot of teachers don't feel confident teaching the topic. So if there were more of them, it could only be better, I think. That's great. Any other Heather, any other thoughts?
Yeah, well, there's tons, really. It's like I can just parrot the same things that these other ladies are saying. And like most of my experience with younger girls is mostly through and briefly, but through the center, is like after school programs. And there's not a lot of them. And again, we're brought in because people don't really know the subject material and whichever, and it's usually basic stuff, but that could even lead into like, how do we create programs that are easily available to these teachers or these after school programs? That can cascade into an entirely different conversation, but yeah, I know like the work is being done, and we are all seeing and experiencing the astronomy community in mostly good light. and it's been a lot of fun for us. There's a reason why we're still sticking to it. So it's a good hobby, and I love it.
Nice. Well, Denise touched on the other point I wanted to talk about was, are we encountering young women in our outreach as rascals, as astronomers? Definitely at the DDO, we see a great mix of people. And as Denise said, like equal numbers at certain ages. And then it tends to change later. We can talk about that in a minute. But yeah, does anybody have, any young women they know that are into astronomy or space? Anything?
Can I
nieces,
just
nephews?
jump in?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna not specifically on that topic, but I was going to say, I think that this is one of the really important roles that the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada plays, just in terms of the outreach things that we do. So like in schools, right? I think Heather, you were touching on that as well. Going to do school visits, going to share our passion, where some of those teachers maybe aren't feeling so confident about teaching the subject matter. We can go in and we can give presentations and we can help out with that. And the more diversity that we can represent, in terms of the people that we send into those classrooms, I think the better. Because again, Chris, as you're saying, it's a 50-50 split of male, female in most primary school, high school classrooms. And then it's so great for them to actually see somebody who looks like them, who is their gender, who is representing them as well, right? So RASC, I think, has an important role to play socially in that regard.
I wanted to say, Denise, to your story about seeing that girl light up when she saw you as a presenter. I as you were saying that, I was kind of thinking, man, we're kind of lucky that we get to see that. Like, that's something that, thinking about it from our perspective of somebody who's maybe not underrepresented in the field, you don't have that special connection where it's like, oh, that person's excited because of me. Like, that's so cool. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it is a really special moment. It gave me the feelings.
Yeah. 100%.
Nice.
Maybe there's room there should be more training. Sorry, I'm thinking in terms of like how we can improve the RASC overall and getting more women out into classrooms. And maybe we need to do like a women in classrooms kind of like course of, do you feel, how to get into classes, how to supplement the teachers to information that they might, or make the teacher more comfortable teaching stuff, and give exciting presentations that engage everybody.
I think so too. And also with some new members that still have some observing background, like they know what's going on. And I've got some people that are really actively involved that are my age now, that if we had something like that, it could give them the confidence to go into these classrooms and volunteer that way, which would be amazing.
Do any of you have experience with all girl groups, like Girl Guides or Brownies, things like that?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a better vibe for young girls because they don't have the boys to worry about.
The last one I did, well, it's not just gender specific now for the Girl Guides. I believe it was the Brownies that we went to, and which was nice, but it was still all young girls. And just, again, it was a basic presentation. It was one of our volunteers. It was also a Brownie when she was younger, and she brought her astronomy patch. It was very cool. So all the kids got to see like the old school patch, and they loved it and asked tons of questions. And then now we've been doing programs with them, I think, off and on every couple of months, I think. So hopefully more of that happens across Canada. That would be nice.
Yeah, recently at U of T, we've had a Women in Math group come up, which is really cool, like really, really, really cool, because that means that more women in math who from experience tend to be very shy because, again, their fellow peers are all male. It is easier for them to come forward and go to these events that the Women in Math group create specifically for them. So that's workshops in like Mathematica and Python and all these, MATLAB, and just really cool topics that they would like to learn in an atmosphere that makes them feel comfortable, because they're around people who are just like them, and it's easy to communicate when you see someone at the forefront, again, like everyone here has said, that looks like you, that is like you in the future, for example. And it really puts your dreams into a good perception, because yeah, when we were all girls, like little girls, we really wanted to do all these really cool things with astronomy, and we thought, okay, well, how am I going to get there? Do I need to go through school? Is this going to be strictly a hobby? Like, you had to navigate all of these things. But if you have, panels like this happen more frequently, it's easier to navigate these very difficult times in your life, and the lives of maybe little girls that you can talk to them. I've had my friends come up to me and say, hey Kat, can you talk to my cousin or something? She's like 8 and really likes astronomy. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, bring her to me, I will definitely talk to her. So definitely just fostering that kind of environment is so useful, and I can't express it more than that.
Every once in a while, I'm 100% with you, Kat, and I think having women in the field who are excited to bring more women into the field is like really, really key. Because every once in a while I've had a conversation where with a woman in science or a woman in astronomy who's been like, well, I did it, so you can too, sort of thing. It's like, that's, I get the attitude and I get the feeling, but like, that's not always the case for everybody. And it's nice to, and like, also, should you have to, like, if the work's already been done, shouldn't you want to make it easier for the next person? So I kind of like, I get the feeling, but I think as we move forward into getting more women into astronomy, then there's more people who have done the work themselves and want to just like get more people in an easier and more efficient way, which is a nice place for us to be at. I think we're getting to that point now, which is awesome.
I know quite a few, I can think of quite a few Toronto Centre members where it was the woman spouse that was into astronomy first, and then sort of brought the husband along. Sometimes the husband then tends to dominate, because I think it's just the old boys club thing. But I just think that's fantastic that, the wife, I can think of a couple where, the wife had the big Dobsonian telescope in the closet when they started dating, and then they got married, and now, astronomy's in the family. So I think that's terrific too.
Yeah, I'm one of those people.
I've noticed too over the years, because I used to be on the board nationally. A lot of that has changed. There's a lot of women that are getting into it just for themselves, which I'm really happy to see. But it is also great that a lot of these spouses have kind of stuck around. Look, there's tons of us tons of them in our center and continue to help, and it's amazing. They've been involved for decades.
Can I jump in on that question about the Girl Guides and things? I have not had the pleasure, unfortunately, of doing a Girl Guides group tour yet. I'm hoping to do that at some point. But what I did want to say is I think representation is equally important for all boys groups too, right? I think it does change perspectives for young people to, for particularly young boys to show up and see that actually it's a woman leading their session, right, and leading their tour, because it sets that expectation that yes, this is a job that women can in fact do, and that it doesn't have to be a boys club, right? So I think that that's also important. And also to speak, I think it was Jenna saying, you were saying that you've heard people who are saying, I did it, you can do it too. I agree, you shouldn't have to. That said, though, I did want to encourage any young women in the audience, be bold. Be bold and put yourself out there. Get outside of your comfort zone. I think it can be uncomfortable at first, but quite frankly, some of the people that I have met through my involvement with RASC have been, the most delightful men in my life, apart from, my immediate family. So, it's a very welcoming group on the whole, and I think it's just getting over that. In many cases, it's getting over the initial anxieties about it. That is the real stopping point. And once you push through that, commit to being bold, commit to getting outside your comfort zone. I think that can help. Yeah.
Totally, I'll agree with that as well. Because I had my thought there, but they have they want the same things we do. Like we're all in this doing the exact same thing for the same reason, and we all want to see things change for the better. And they're the people that I went to in the beginning, and they were the ones who helped me achieve my goals and helped me learn. And they still do every day. So yeah, it's, and I remember when I first joined, I was very afraid to have these conversations with people, but then it was just like, no, I want to do this. Start asking questions. And I'm a very anxious person. I don't know if anybody can tell on this call, but it took a lot out of me, but I'm glad I did it. And it changed my life for the better.
Yeah. I was an introvert. Oh my gosh. I mean, school was so incredibly difficult for me because I simply could not make friends. I did not know how. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what like social cues were. So it was really hard. And, you know, having a really good group of people to talk to is definitely essential. I mean, confidence is key. I know that's like said so often in so many different ways and by different people, but confidence can take you so far. And just having a little bit of faith in yourself, you can go from, you know, not being able to do much, or, you know, feeling very insecure about yourself and, you know, unsure as to like what the next, you know, few years will hold for you, to really just going step by step slowly and building that confidence and talking to people who are like you. You can build so much for yourself. I thought that, you know, I wasn't very good at math. I had to force myself to like math in order to go into astronomy. So for me, I was like, okay, I must take it step by step. If I want to do this, I must want to do this, and the other thing. And it's hard, but once you pass that barrier, it just becomes this other thing that you just do on the side. So really put yourself out there, talk to people, and networking is so fun and just fantastic. I mean, I met Chris through somebody else. I mean, this is just a, you know, a cycle of events. And if you really go and like, if you really follow that wheel and keep going, you will go so far in whatever it is that you want to do. So I agree with Heather there. That is so, so, so important.
Little shout out to Chris as well, because I've never felt, the only times I've ever really gone out observing have been pretty much with you, Chris, when you've invited me. I've gone out like once with Alendria, which was great, and once with another friend of mine who happened to stop by where I was. But other than that, it's hard to get the confidence up to go by yourself and to have, and if there aren't, you know, if you don't always get women who are excited to go out. And I'm not going to be the one who's going to be like, hey, do you want to come observing with me if I'm not feeling confident? So to have someone step in and be confident for you is so nice.
Yeah.
That, and I think it also goes back to having faith in yourself to be able to even like make that connection, right? And for me, I remember doing the same thing, because that's honestly, right now I don't have a car, but it was people taking me out to observe. So in order to teach myself, it took me a while because I was very busy with volunteer stuff. But I live in downtown Calgary, but I have a balcony telescope that I use all the time. And I love it. And sometimes I'm usually just looking at the moon, and now I'm just mapping things out. I'm trying to figure things out. So there are things you can do for yourself as long as you just kind of take that leap. And if you don't know how to use something, somebody might know the answer. It's one of your local club members might be able to explain that gadget, and you can go home and figure it out. It's little steps, but so worth it.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to jump in there and say that I've definitely, I mean, I'm in the, you know, I'm based near Toronto, and I've definitely heard from, you know, women in this area that they're a little anxious about literally going out at night in a crowd full of dudes. So,
yeah.
you know, I get that, particularly in a big city. My experience has not been that is in any way threatening. Everyone's been delightful. And I think that's worth keeping in mind too, right? Is that a lot of the time, I think our anxieties do overwhelm us in ways that are not productive, and that, you know, taking a small risk. It's not a big risk to go out with an organized group that's like officially recognized, you know, and yes, we go out at weird hours in weird places in the dark, but but in general, I've never felt in any way threatened. And I wanted to kind of reassure people about that it is, in fact, you're a very welcoming group, and everyone's very respectful. So, but yes, there's definitely, anxiety about safety. But I think, Heather, talking about your balcony telescope, that's how I started too. My little telescope was on the balcony, and quite frankly, you can learn a lot from that. RASC has so many great resources for, observing the night sky and understanding, what it is that you're looking at, that you can do independently or with a little bit of internet research, right? I also think that, these types of sessions are fantastic for that too. This session that Chris has been running here for so long, with help, is so great because it introduces people to what you can look at, what's going on, what are the things that are up right now that are worth observing no matter where you are. So it can definitely, resonate with people and allow them to take those first steps and build up that confidence, for sure.
Some other tools that might be helpful for people that aren't quite ready to go on the outdoor observing route is, I know RASC has Stellarium courses. Like, even downloading that app itself is fun to just cruise around on and learn a lot from your location. And there's also there's services out there. I know we've shut ours down, but there's remote telescopes you can sign up for, and you can check things out that way. You can dabble in stuff before you jump right in.
Yeah, maybe what we really need is a ladies observing committee or something in RASC, so that
Yes.
we can get just the girls out.
Buddy system mentoring, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just saw there's a question in the chat about, or sorry, in the Q&A about having a women's mentorship program. And I know that one of the, I guess she's the chair of National Council. One of our committees, she was talking about a women's observing group. I don't know if she meant to limit it to Halifax and Nova Scotia, where she's from, but I might just force her not to have it be included.
Well, not every center that would work, but in Toronto, there's so many members in the Toronto Center, and some of the bigger cities have lots and lots of members. It's bound to be.
And even if it's not just like a go out and observing thing, even if it's someone to bounce ideas off of or talk about what you're looking at, that's nice too, right?
What about sort of starting slow? In other words, do an in-town gathering, do a City Star party where it's safe. You're not driving somewhere distant. You're not sure where you're going. It's not totally dark, but you're in a community. You've got people in a park or something milling about. Maybe that's a good first steps. Then you get to know some of the other dudes and then get to comfortable with them. And then you're ready to go out with them or go to a darker site and have some of the same people there when you do that.
We could also even do like online women's non-binary socials that could, and when people are joining, you can put your center in there and then you can connect that way. Because I know a lot of women, they haven't met me yet. They see my name all the time, but they don't always see me at events. But once they do, once they connect, it's been great. And our social committee was thinking of putting on even a public thing with just women and do like an Astro pub night with women that are interested but have kind of not sure about it. But yeah, that might help. Like, member social can even be online.
So Jenna, tell them about the Discord server thing that we did.
Oh my goodness, that was the best. We should reactivate that. I was lonely over the pandemic, as one is. And we started a Discord server, and we had like an observing night on the Voice channel. And it was awesome. And Chris came on and he told us all this cool stuff. And we all we were all sitting outside with our headphones in and kind of going like, all right, Chris would say, okay, so you see, here's the brightest star, that one's this. And if you move this way and this way, you'll see this. And it was so cool. And we saw X-37B, which was the secret space plane. And I didn't know it was the secret space plane. I was just like, oh, that's like really bright. And then someone else on the chat said, where are you? And which way did it go? And through what constellation? And then like 5 minutes later, he was like, oh, this is a space plane. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. It was awesome.
It's like having the open channel or having your cell phone, talking to cell phone when you're walking home in the dark. You have an open channel to somebody.
Discord's great for that kind of stuff. I use it every week for my Dungeons and Dragons. but yeah, I would love to see a channel pop up again.
Even if it's not like someone with you. And I know it's always, for me, I get nervous going out by myself at night, but it's like, yeah, as you said, Chris, it's like being on the phone with your mom on the way home or whatever. And you're like, it feels safe, even though it's not really, you don't really have the extra safety, but it feels like you're not alone at least. And then you have someone to share the excitement with. That's part of the fun. Oh, I started women's observing group with Discord channel. We'll see. Anyway, I'm writing all the notes down.
Sign me up.
So just looking at there's a lot of cool chat going on at the same time. Somebody's mentioned libraries a couple of times, and I think that could be a fantastic opportunity. Denise and I have done some library work as well, and like it's all ages, it's in a safe place, there's lots of people around, there's security around. I think that's a great way to do outreach. You might gather some new rascals to something like that. So yeah. All
Just
right, what else?
one last point to your question about like girls only groups, Chris. I think I've mentioned this on Insider's Guide before, but it's been a while. I went to an all-girls school, and I think it was a huge win for my vision of myself in sciences. And I think that because I was never told I couldn't do something because I was a woman or I was a girl. No one ever said that. And I think, and Kat, to your point of not seeing many women in post-secondary or post-secondary education, they learn that you can't do it because you're a woman in high school. And that's when you form your idea of who you are as a person and whether or not you identify with the sciences. So if you're just never given the opportunity to think you can't do it, then you show up at university, and even if there's a class full of dudes and you're like 1 in 3, it's kind of like, oh, well, like, no one ever said I couldn't. So it feels a little bit better. I think, I don't know for sure, because that's only my experience. It's not everybody's, but for me, at least, I did not feel, I never felt outnumbered or like I didn't belong, because nobody ever said I didn't.
Yeah, it happened to me in high school. That's when I lost all of it, and it came back later.
But what's great is that nowadays there is social media, and much as it has its downside, I mean, you could have a network of young girl women astronomers, physics nerds anywhere. It doesn't have to be, there might only be 3 at U of T, but there could be another 2 at York and another few here and there. Put them all together, have a network.
That's what I use Twitter for. Essentially, a lot of the people I've connected with across North America and even overseas is because of that astro community. And it's been really helpful just to have, because there's a lot of women and a lot, like, you see the diversity, you see the people doing the work, and they inspire you.
That's a great point. I was going to say, I think that's really what it comes down to, is even if it's not an all girls group, and which I think is a great idea for the record, but once, Jenna, you were saying, like, once you get into that context where you're, 1 of 3 women in a room of men, it kind of stops becoming an issue once you sort of get used to that, I guess. And I think that what the core idea there is that we're really all drawn together by our shared interest and passion, right? And so I feel like it's an initial hump, and once you get over it, it's almost not an issue, because everybody is still working with that shared sense of enthusiasm, that's driving us all. So it allows people to kind of connect in different ways like that. Yeah,
I agree. And I think it's interesting how, so getting over that hump, as you say, it's almost like a perspective change from like men are doing it to like, that guy's an idiot. And it's not so much, it's like, it's the one guy, it's not the whole group. And it feels like the whole group at first, but then you get one person who's like, oh, you can't do that, you're a woman. You're like, wow, what a jerk. And then that, that person gets categorized in the jerk category and not necessarily in the, like, we're being stopped from it doing this category.
What about posting regular, semi-regular hangouts with some of the, more prominent women astronomers, imagers in our community? I can think of Carrie Ann Hecky-Lepburn and Deborah Saravallo and Jenna and
Hayes in the chat.
Denise. I wish I could clone Denise. But yeah, maybe now and again.
I wish I could clone me too. It might deal with my workload better.
Yeah, maybe there could be some sort of a informal hangout, ask Q&A, share experiences, share what you're up to, that sort of thing.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Sign me up.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, I will unofficially say I'll work on it, and I will be in touch with everybody who's on the stream.
I'd love to help with that. That'd be
That'd
great.
be awesome.
So what about RAS publications, things like that? Is there anything that could be done differently or better or tweaked? What do you think?
I'm trying to think of like offering educational resources and stuff, like, you know, books, which I think the Rask already does, like in a really great way. I mean, you know, online courses, workshops, again, books, just things that people can use to develop, you know, their skills, their knowledge in astronomy. I think more stuff like this would be fantastic, because again, addressing systemic barriers is definitely one of the most important things that we can do in our time. I mean, we are very able right now, us women, to have a voice, and we can be the voice for those women who cannot have a voice. So definitely, you know, incorporating these things into, you know, newsletters more, like just even if it's not even Rask affiliated, maybe just something else, you know, that people can tune into whenever they can, and you know, learn about other people's experiences, you know, as a woman. I think that would be so fantastic. Like this would ensure that, you know, other women feel empowered to pursue their interests in astronomy, whether it be for academia or for, you know, a hobby. It's all the same, and we all share a similar interest, just like, you know, Denise said. I mean, it's a shared interest between everybody involved. And again, that initial hump is very hard, but once you get over it, I mean, it's a form of, you know, confidence and empowerment. And I don't mean like get over it in the sense of like, oh, you're just gonna have to like put up with it. It's not like that. It's more like, you know, you really got to have empowerment in yourself to, you know, be able to have that voice for the people who don't have one. And you yourself, your story is important. And I think people don't really realize that they just say, oh, I'm just a blip, you know, in the scope of the universe. But really everyone is so important, and learning from each other is what garners your ability to be stronger and to be that leader for other young women as well. So that's very important. So just stuff on the newsletter about these things, just anything, I think would be so fantastic. I love the idea of having, you know, all women go out to, you know, deep sky and, you know, set up our telescopes and just have fun. I mean, that's so important. I love that.
Maybe if we start this like women's club of sort of the women's hangout sessions and chats and stuff like that, we can start some sort of column in one of our publications, either like the newsletter or the bulletin or something like that, and just talk about the stuff that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. It's a great place to start, to come up with different ideas that would definitely take a lot more, I guess, involvement, because like I would love to see like a book or something.
Oh yeah.
But that's a lot of work. So, but that would be something we could do soon, right?
Yeah, something quick that we could get started on.
Yeah.
What
Yeah, I
about an
think-
initiative? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say just upholding, you know, our sort of role models too, right? Is a good way to move through that. Like I know on several occasions, you know, I've been to, you know, member night meetings where people have presented on historical women astronomers, and, you know, to recognize that we're part of a lineage is, I think, also important, right? You know, you were talking about being, you know, remembering that we're not just a blip. Yeah, that's right. We're not. We're part of a lineage that extends into the distant past and will extend on into the distant future. And I think just kind of figuring out how to situate ourselves in that is also a key factor. Unfortunately, I have another class in 1 minute, so
Thank you, Denise.
I've really enjoyed what I've, you know, been able to participate in with respect to this call, but I do have to head off. So thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of the discussion. I'll be tuning into the replay to see where it went after this.
Thank you, Denise. It was nice to
Thanks,
meet
everybody.
Yes, it was nice to meet you. Take
It was
care.
great
now.
to meet all of you, and I'm
Bye.
looking forward to the invitations to ladies' night.
I will work on it. Bye,
Okay,
Denise.
so long.
Bye.
That's great. Yeah, I wondered about one of the things that makes me really sad when I think about young kids in astronomy is when I was a kid, I didn't think anything of taking my telescope to some dark corner somewhere and set up. And I just don't think young girls can do that. I mean,
Nope.
even young boys can't do that probably
God,
nowadays.
no.
But I mean, could there be a big sister network or something that somebody could look up and see if there's a
Oh yeah,
mentor that could come along to something like that?
Yeah.
absolutely. Growing up, I had a telescope as well. I was not allowed even to go onto the balcony because my dad was afraid that, I would, get hurt or something, which makes sense. But at the same time, going outside as a little girl is very hard in general. I had very strict parents, but I mean, they meant well. And I'm sure most women are also in my shoes in that sense. So being able to go outside was hard, and I'm sure a lot of people again were in that scenario. And to kind of overcome that, you need to foster a good sense of security, and in order to do that, you need to bring along people again who are like them, who mean no harm, essentially, to just go outside and have fun, because that's the whole point of astronomy, is to just go outside and do what makes you happy. So yeah, I mean, definitely connecting with other bigger organizations. I think you'll be able to find so many more, ladies who'd like to get involved, and it's a huge community out there. So I'm very, very keen on what there is right now.
I 100% agree. I even feel uncomfortable sometimes going out by myself now. Like, I've definitely had experiences where I've been outside and people, typically men, will not leave me alone until I give them some sort of contact information, and I'm stuck with my telescope that I can't pick up and move, and so it's hard to leave, right? And so I think, yeah, it sucks. It's one of those things. I'm so torn about this because we did in high school, we did self-defense training because it was an all-girl school, and that was one of the things that came up, and it kind of sucks. It's like, yeah, it sucks that you have to do that. It's good to be prepared. I'd rather live in a world where we don't have to do that. But unfortunately, we don't. And so the reality of the situation is, yeah, it's good to be prepared. And I think in this case, it's one of those things where having a big sister or something like that, or some sort of buddy who's, especially for younger folks, who has situational awareness and who can teach situational awareness and teach about how to get yourselves out of these situations without causing any escalation or without causing any problems, is really important for younger people, and especially young women.
What was I was going to say something I forgot.
Scary dog privilege is great. Yeah. Having a big dog, something like that.
Yeah. The buddy system is always the best route to go, for sure. I've seen that in the chat a lot, which is good.
One thing that occurred to me is, so Jen, and this will be in your domain, I guess, is I know that a lot of the schools to teach astronomy have astronomy departments. They really emphasize outreach and community and things like that. I know York is very big in that. U of T has it as well. Places have it as well. And are there people that we're not in touch with as rascals that are in academia that, maybe there are a whole bunch of big sister astronomers out there at some of the local universities that could connect up, we could connect with.
Kat, you look like you
That's Kat too.
have thoughts.
Oh yeah. I know so many fantastic astronomy professors at U of T who are just so fantastic. I mean, walking into my second year at U of T, finally doing my first introductory to astrophysics course, I was like seeing this really fantastic like lady talk, and she was like, I was astounded because her background in astronomy was just so fantastic. And me and my fellow women in astronomy were like, oh my gosh, we can be like that one day, because I don't know, it was just so surreal, because at that point, up until that point, we had only ever seen men in the physics department teaching. And then I saw, the first woman teaching me physics. And I was like, wow, this is groundbreaking. And there are so many of them that, they are not really coming to the forefront. They don't really interact with a lot of the department, which is unfortunate. But if I do tell them about these opportunities, I am sure that they will pounce on them, that they will definitely want to get involved, because if it means getting more women involved in STEM pertaining to astronomy specifically, and not necessarily academia, but just in general, it would be so fantastic, because that's just one more person that they can talk to that has experience in this field, who can say, yeah, I was also in your situation, or I was discouraged, and I got the opportunity to talk to that professor, and she was like, oh yeah, that was the case for me as well. I was in your shoes. I was like, I am validated. Oh my gosh, thank God. And it was just so great. So I will definitely reach out to them. I think that would be really fantastic.
We had a chat from, or sorry, we had a talk from Dr. Linda Shore at ASP, and she at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. And she was talking about one of the programs that they did where university clubs would partner with local astronomy clubs to create like off the eclipse path for the most part, to create content for the people outside of the eclipse path, because the eclipse path of 2024 is getting a lot of attention, and everybody else outside of the path who's still going to see a partial eclipse and it's still interesting is not getting that much attention. So they're working together in this partnership with NASA. We are not at that level. Also, NASA doesn't care about Canada, unfortunately. I'm sure they do, but they don't care about it in this context. So we're not included in this program. But it's the sort of thing where if we can get, so we've talked about this for years and we've never found a good way to really do it, is partnering school clubs with brass clubs. And that's, I think it's a really vital connection because as you said, Kat, like you see older women mentors who've been through your sort of where you are right now, and kids see us at this age and kind of go, okay, they can relate to me more than somebody who's like in their 60s or something like that. So having this like this sort of curve of women at different ages and having had different experiences and seeing, you know, being relatable to different people, I think is really important. So having club level people, I think at universities, that sort of thing, even high schools would be awesome.
But the COVID has been transformational in terms of outreach and availability, you know, communications, because there are lots and lots of rascals that never use Zoom, never had to use Zoom, never needed to, are now great at it and could easily log into a school or a club, right?
Yeah, lots of I think for us at Rask, the key, I mean, we're, as Heather and Denise I think was saying as well, the club's pretty chill. People are really nice. Everyone's pretty friendly, and like everyone's fairly inclusive when it comes to this stuff, and supportive, and you know, men, women, whatever, everyone's kind of just like, yes, space is neat. Also, like, look at my little nerdy hobby that I have and let me show everybody. Like, everyone's really excited about it. I think, I can't remember where I was going with this, but I think basically we need to support more, find some way to support more women in Rask to go and do the outreach things, because there's, you know, it's just nice to see other people, but women need to have the support too to be able to go out.
Just as good at it, just as good.
Yeah.
At it.
Yeah.
Well, and I like the idea of possibly maybe in the future setting up, you know, like not even just a get together where we even talk about going out and doing outreach and helping other members build that confidence. Because I could even use it, to be honest. Like I show up, but I'm like, I'm not bringing my equipment because I will clam up. So I'll just be there and get everybody excited, which I love doing, but I would love to actually teach and feel confident in that. And I know a lot of other members would too. So it'd be kind of interesting if we could put something together, even if it's
Okay, but here's a question for you though. I'll bet if you were answering questions, you'd be great. It's the teaching thought that makes it hard. But to answer questions is probably really easy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I show up.
Yeah. So you need those girls and kids to be peppering you with questions. And
Oh yeah, I love it.
It's that so that's actually I hate preparing talks. I hate it. That's the approach I usually take in my talks. I'll do like the shortest little intro and then be like, okay, what do you care about? We're going to open Stellarium and just do whatever you want to do. Which probably not super what teachers want me to do, but I don't care because I'm here and I'm doing what I want to do. And it's so much more fun that way. And it's also engaging for the kids that way, because then, you know, they get to lead the discussion and we get to just kind of, I don't know, learn what we want to learn.
Well, you get to explore too, right? That's awesome. Who doesn't want to just dive in and get lost somewhere and start asking questions? That's a great idea.
It's so much fun. It's so much more fun than preparing a talk.
Yeah.
And if it's little kids, you won't have any shortage of questions.
No.
So just make sure there's some of those in the mix.
I went to a grade 8 school and I was supposed to be talking about exoplanets or something like that. And then like 10 minutes in, somebody asked me about aliens and I was like, great, let's talk about life on other planets. Let's talk about how we see this stuff and how we'd figure it out. And we just like completely spiraled. And the teacher's just sitting in the back kind of like enjoying themselves for the most part, because these are all questions that they want to ask too. I'm 100% totally on board.
So I have another question for you, Heather. One thing that I've noticed in the Toronto Centre, and you're heavy and you're important in the Calgary Centre, do you find that there are young women that come along, they're really, really keen, really involved, but then they go off to university and they disappear? Things like that happen. We find that all the time.
I would say yes. I haven't seen a lot of it just because I'm only back now at the Calgary Center over the last couple of years, but I know that happens. But usually we end up bringing them back for a talk. I know we've done that for
Oh, that's good.
one of them. But yeah, I don't know. And then I found when I was originally getting into it, because I was planning on taking astrophysics, and I wanted to find something that was going to at least like help me stay involved in the hobby aspect of it, which is how I found RASC, and then it cascaded into different things, but I digress. I wonder too, if there's a way to keep those girls involved, and because they've got, I know, Kat, you're in the academic world, so you've got a lot on your plate when you're doing all of that stuff. So what can we do that's easy for them to join, have fun? You don't have to put on a presentation, just show up, something where people get to know them.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
we did liquid nitrogen ice cream sales, which
Cool.
I was like, yes, we finally get to like have an excuse to bother the physics department and say, hey, we want your liquid nitrogen. Very expensive stuff, but it's so fun. And we dedicated it specifically to like, you know, women and women in STEM, and like so many people came, and it was just so fantastic. And you know, it was a hot summer day, and everyone was really excited to have some really cold food. And retaining women in the field, I think just maintaining a very open atmosphere. I really am for EDI, which is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity training within the university. I made it mandatory for everyone that I worked with to take some kind of training in that regard. And I think just having the basic knowledge of like how to communicate with women, you know, how to communicate with gender non-binary and gender fluid people, and, you know, being able to, you know, use gender neutral language in situations where you're unsure, like just little stuff like that compounds, and it makes like working with different people so much easier. And simple training that takes like one day to do will really change your perspective on how to treat people around you, and how to like, you know, address issues relating to workplace culture, accessibility, and, you know, what can you do as, you know, a man to, you know, help, you know, support the environment that is a positive workplace, rather than fostering a sense of, you know, exclusion and, you know, being unsure as to how to talk to people. Well, there are resources so that you can do that, and it's not hard to do. And I've had so many people come up to me saying, hey, I see that you do EDI training for, you know, your executives. Why, you know, I want to do EDI training, but I'm not involved in anything. Can I do it? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You don't have to be involved with the club to have training in any of this. There's so many resources online to look at. And maybe catering, not necessarily certain, well, yeah, I would say that catering certain events to women is ideal, because then that would, you know, foster that sense of like, oh, I'm wanted in this community, clearly, and you're celebrated for being who you are, rather than, you know, needing to conform to, you know, other societal standards that have been imposed on you. And it's just awful being in an environment where you don't feel welcome, like I felt for the longest time. Being surrounded by so many men in my first year. And I was like, hey, I see, you know, there's a female president at the forefront. She was so fantastic. Her name was Rose. And I was like, I want to do that. And I like set my mind on it that I really wanted to be just like her. And I did. And I was so proud of myself. And the women around me were very proud of me. And it felt so good to have that kind of support from, you know, those around you who mean so much to you, and you mean so much to them. So that's how I retain people, is just EDI. I think that's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up as well, because it's about fostering safe and inclusive environments for everyone to enjoy the hobby, and having the education to have those conversations and deal with them is important, because you can mess it up real quick. But yeah, no, I agree with you, Kat.
So we have about 10 minutes before we need to get into our finest NGCs. I was wondering if maybe someone on the Zoom who wants to unmute and make a comment or ask a question could pop in. How's that sound?
If people want to unmute, just raise your hand because we're in participant mode, so we have to allow you to talk. While questions come in, I just wanted to address Anne's question in the Q&A that was naturally a lot of the experts and hosts are in the Toronto area from RASC, which I don't begrudge, baby steps. How could each center become more aware of this topic and ideally take it on board? And I think we do have more representation than you think, but we can, because Heather, you're in Calgary and we've got some really awesome people in Halifax. You're right, I don't know as many women in Ottawa specifically. Great people in Montreal. Montreal's got a ton of representation. But I think part of it too is there are a lot of small clubs that are part of RASC. Sarnia is only like 13 people big. And so there's only so many, there's only so much that one small center could do. Ottawa is a little bit larger, but even still, I think that's part of where National comes in, is this ability to connect all the centers and share resources between them. And so I think for empowering folks in Ottawa, we'll do some more national level events, and any women who in Ottawa who are interested in participating and getting some of that experience on that side of things can come to those national events, and then we'll try to give some resources to help them share on the local level maybe.
Well, what about putting a call out for anybody that wants to sign up for a channel, a dedicated channel to that sort of thing across the country, across centers?
Mm-hmm.
And special newsletter or special events, that kind of thing. Does that work?
Yeah.
Does that work?
I think so, yeah. And we can talk about this. I have a friend of mine who's in astronomy, or he builds satellites, and he's one of the best allies to women I know. He's so good at it. And I feel so bad because every time that we do women's only events, he's like, oh man, that sounds like so much fun. And I'm like, I've done an all women climbing weekend, and it was the best. I've never been in the majority when I'm outside in nature. It was so cool. And he was like, man, that sounds awesome. I want to go, but I understand why I can't, but I really want to be a part of it. And so I want to leave room for those kinds of people too, these really strong allies as well. But we'll figure out a way.
Sure. Well, ironically, you might an event like that might actually kind of scare away the more chauvinistic guys who don't want to hang out with a lot of women, right? Or I'd be fine.
Yeah, you'd be great. Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
We have a comment in Zoom, but I haven't read through it. So give me 1 second from Ariel. I want to ask if we can include outreach for homeschoolers and neurodiversity training also, because that really helps open it up to a lot of younger kids and girls. I love all the emails personally, and attending these are really helpful. That's a good point. Yeah, honestly, not just women. There's a whole bunch of minorities that are underrepresented in astronomy, and so making sure that we're not just catering to women. It's awesome. And we're at a point now, I think, with including women in astronomy, where it's going from when you're the sort of the men in the society are going from women are in my hobby to being generally supportive and excited about stuff. And it kind of becomes taboo to be the other way, to be that person who's oh, this is my club. It's kind of, the tables have kind of turned, but that's for women and that's not for everybody. And so, yeah, you're right. We do need to do some training for everybody else too.
So that, one of the reasons we started Insider's Guide to the Galaxy was COVID had us all locked down. And I thought, 3:30 in the afternoon, something for kids, families to do and learn about astronomy. Maybe that's something that, not this, but something like this could be done for homeschool parents and things like that too.
Kat, there's a question for you in the Q&A, which is, so having gone through the university system 30 years ago, this is from Nina, I'm a bit surprised that some of the same barriers exist today for women. What do you think is the main reason women are not equally represented in the astronomy field of study? I know that my young family members are encouraged to do whatever their hearts desire.
That is a very good question. So even to this day, I am met with very rude people who say, oh, you've gone from, pure astrophysics to planetary science. What happened? Are you stupid? And I'm like, excuse me. No, I've gotten that quite a few times from people in my year. And it's very disheartening. But these things, these emotions that, women feel when we are discriminated against or told that we are stupid for, not being able to do something. It's not that I didn't want to do it. I wanted to, and I'm very able to. It's just that my dreams were a little bit different than your own. So, having that discussion with, with these boys and like telling them, up front that what you're saying is not nice and that you should really rethink your tone with not only me but with other women who do so much for our community. It hasn't changed in the past 30 years because nobody has really gone to the forefront and openly said we need to do something about it, and I feel like a lot of women are too afraid to do that. I have no issue telling somebody to their face what their problem is, if they do something wrong to not only myself, but to my peers. And I think having confidence, again, in yourself, it all stems from confidence, is being able to, talk to the university and put things forward saying, if somebody is to, interact with somebody else, they don't really know how to, communicate their, their thoughts and their feelings appropriately. So I really don't know what's happening right now, but I do know that there are a lot of projects at University of Toronto specifically that are trying to beat that kind of stereotype with, not enough women in STEM. And we've put petitions forward to say, every professor, every teacher's assistant at the university, everyone who holds any kind of power at the university must be put through training, because if they're not, then they essentially are not on the same page as everyone else. And, from early childhood, girls are, told that they cannot do certain things because they are girls. I mean, going onto the University of Toronto bookstore website this morning to look for some gifts for my mother, I saw some cooking books, and I felt very odd about that. That that is the stereotype that we coincide with a mother, and it's very sad, and it does bring a lot of emotion up in me and the women that I work with, because it kind of removes what is good about having women in STEM, because it kind of replaces it with a more stereotypical perception of what a woman is. And it's awful. And there's not much that we can really do except, scream at the university and tell them that what they are doing is crappy and that they must be more proficient with their teaching and how to go about talking with other groups and getting other women involved. It's so unbelievably important, and the university is just so closed-mouthed about it. They don't like talking about it because they don't like being political in this instance, but you can't be quiet about it, because once you're quiet about it, then you're on the wrong side of the fence. I'm sorry.
So if we're to do revisit women-focused astronomy and Insider's Guide down the road a little bit, what sort of things would people like to see us do or talk about? More of this, or are there other things celebrating women in astronomy or women astronomers? What sort of things do you think?
I look forward to seeing what the chat says. Mostly I just like presenting, like even if it's not necessarily about the stuff that I do, I just like talking about stuff on here and maybe having more women guests or something like that. Even if it's not just like we're doing women specific astronomy, it's just women speaking. Might be a good thing to do. But please feel free to add more in the chat if anyone has specific things they want to do.
I'd also love to participate in something like that, because my old presentation, which is on YouTube through you guys, the Canadian Women in Astronomy, needs some work and we need to update it. So let's get together and chat about it.
Okay. Perfect.
Good suggestion from Nina, which is informal opportunities to ask general and technical questions would be very helpful. A chat session, because it can turn into great discussions, 100%. I think having some room for informal stuff is kind of nice. Like that,
Yeah,
again, sort of like having like those school groups where you show up and you go, here's like a 5-minute talk about stuff that I know about. Now ask me questions to get people started. Might be a good sort of thing to do with Insider's Guide. We'll see.
I really like what Ariel just said. That is good. I love the current projects and, day-to-day life because it's so real. Like you are so grounded and like being able to discuss like what it is that you do like as a female like amateur astronomer on a daily basis. What does your day look like? So, you can really have the opportunity to show other girls like, hey, this is what my day looks like. As an adult, I really don't feel like an adult. I still feel like that little girl who's like, oh my God, I'm doing cool space stuff. Like that's just how I feel on a daily basis. And it's so empowering and great to like hear other people's stories. And it really connects you with like real life. Because real life isn't all about, terrible things that happen on the news and, on a daily basis. It can be something simple as like, what's your favorite type of tea? Like, what tea have you been drinking lately? And it's just so real. And I love that.
I don't know. I think STEM people never grew up.
No.
Definitely not.
No, definitely not.
That's why we're into it. That's why we love it. All right. Well, I think I need to get on to Finest NGC, but Jenna, you had a final
Can I
thought?
just say one last thing? Kirsten Vanstone at the GA this weekend suggested a book club at Rask, and I think it's a great idea, like a sci-fi book club. And I think it's also a great idea. I'm not saying that it would be women's only necessarily, but I don't know, it would be a great opportunity for women to have chats about this stuff. So that sort of, we'll see if we can figure something out with that. Just wanted to test the waters with people. Okay.
Cool.
I like
Good.
that.
It would be so much fun, right?
Yeah, I would be in totally.
Nice. All right. I think we'll pick up some more. People are still chatting in the chat, but I'll get these Finest NGCs done, and we'll carry on another day and some more talk another time. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Denise. It's been great. I was really pleased we could do this. It's been a while coming, but we'll keep it going.
Thank you for making the space for this, Chris. I think that also plays a big part in this. It's really this comes up occasionally with minorities and Indigenous people, that sort of thing, where they should not be the ones to do all of the work. And it's really nice to have you doing the work of putting this together and just calling women and being like, hey, you want to talk? It really makes a big difference. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes, I agree with Jenna.
Oh yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I got the opportunity to meet such wonderful women today, and I'm so happy that I've made these connections now. So thank you so much.
Well, you've got everybody's email, so you can keep it going. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. Here we go. Let's see. Off we go. So if you've been tuning in recently, you know that we're covering the spring Finest NGC objects. The list appears in the Observer's Handbook. It was put together by Alan Dyer. And there are lots and lots of them in the spring. So we're kind of powering through them as quick as we can to get through them and get them all covered. And what we've got here is a neat little grouping that are all sitting up here in one little spot, which makes it kind of easy to navigate through them. And a couple of interesting points about this grouping for this session is they're all kind of sitting here near the North Galactic Pole, which is the NGP, which is up here in Coma Berenices. And you can find most of these objects by navigating from this star, Aldebaran or Gamma Coma Berenices. It's a magnitude 4.3 star, so it's a naked eye star. If your sky is reasonably dark, it's not a super bright star, but you should be able to find it. So let's work through some of these. Some real gems in the list this time. All right, so first up, we've got NGC 4274. We got here 4274. That is the oblique spiral galaxy. Look at this cool galaxy. It's got this neat oval core in the middle and then this more ghostly, fainter outer disk. And so what's great about this is that the central region is bright enough to be visible in 4-inch or bigger telescopes. You don't need a very large telescope to see it. Discovered by William Herschel back on March 13th, 1785, number 75 on his class number 1. And now because it's in a galaxy-rich part of the sky, it's surrounded by all kinds of other galaxies. So here, once you've got it, you've got this bonus of NGC 4314, which is a cool one. You've got a little grouping here, which include 4245, 4278, 4283, 4286. We've got 4245 here as well. That's kind of neat. Where it is, just to sort of zoom back out here, So it's 2 degrees or 2 finger widths, if you like, to the northwest of that star, Gamma Coma Berenices, or Aldephira. The way I found it was I star hopped and I just found these brighter stars, this 9 Comae and this double star Otto Struve 245, and found my way up. If I put in the telescope view here, you can see that it's, here we go here, center this up, there we go. So about a 1.5 degree field of view incorporates all of those other galaxies I mentioned, and it actually shares the field of view with those brighter stars I just mentioned, the 9 Coma and the 10 Coma. So what you want to do when you're observing it is you want to look for that shape and orientation, the stellar core, describe the core versus the disk, that central oval region. And that's where you want to bring that averted vision, see if you can get that more extended disk out as well. And then obviously you're going to look around and enjoy some of the other sites while you're in the neighborhood. This one's about between various estimates on its distance between 35 and 60 million light years away. We're not too sure the exact distance of that one. Next up is NGC 4414. Just wind this back so you can see where these are. 4414 is in the same sort of neighborhood. So what you're going to do, this is a real showpiece. Look at that. It's a superb edge on or oblique, not fully edge on, but oblique spiral galaxy with a dark dust lane visible. Where are we here? 40. Oh, here we go. Small galaxy, stellar nucleus. The arms are called flocculent. So they're not separated and lengthy. They're more broken up and sort of clustered together. And that sort of bright oval makes it visible in almost any telescope, any good quality telescope under dark skies. Discovered by William Herschel on March 13th, 1785, number 77 on his class 1. It's 3 degrees north of Aldephira. And what I would recommend doing is see if you can see the L shape of Coma. You're essentially going to go from beta out to gamma and go 90 degrees in the direction sort of up towards Chara, up in this direction. And as I said, it's 3 fields or about 2 telescope fields of view, 2 eyepiece fields of view. You can see a bright field star shining. Let me just bring up its eyepiece view here. There's a few bright field stars in the area of it. And this one shows well at different magnifications. So you can start your search at low power and then crank up the magnification. You want to see if you can see any of that internal structure, note the characteristics of the core and that sort of thing, and the field stars around it. It's about 55 million light years away. Next up, we've got the Needle Galaxy, Caldwell 38. Needle Galaxy is amazing because it's so edge on. It's its light is very concentrated, making it highly visible. It's an edge on spiral galaxy. It has this dark dust lane, which you might pick up if you have a larger telescope, but even a smaller telescope should be able to see the main slash of light. Discovered by William Herschel on April 6th of 1785, number 24 in his class 5. And it's 3 degrees southwest. So it's about the same distance away as 4414, but in the direction towards the other 3rd star of Coma. So if you join these 2 stars together, it's right on the line between them, and it's basically 2 telescope fields if you're using about a 1.5 degree field of view. I also used, when I was navigating, it's also sitting just to the east of the Coma star cluster, Melotte 111, and I actually used this nice double star 17 Comae to help me find my way to it. Now this one is also great at various magnifications and various apertures of telescope, and use averted vision and just see how far you can extend it in your field of view. So it sort of gives you a sense of its view at 35 power. Now we got a bit of a 2-for-1 here because we've also got NGC 4494 in the same neighborhood. And actually, I think you can, yeah, they'll share the field of view. So you can actually get them both in the same field of view. Just center up on this one. So if you found the one, you're going to easily find the other. This one's an elliptical galaxy. It's visible in bigger telescopes. You're probably going to need a 6-inch telescope or bigger to see it well. Again, discovered by William Herschel on April 6th of 1785. And I thought what I thought was neat about it was it sits at the end of a little curved asterism. Can you see the star galaxy? The sort of in your telescope, if your telescope flips the view around, this will be kind of a little smile with the kind of gold tooth at the corner, that sort of thing. That's a neat one. All right, next up, we've got NGC 4559, Caldwell 36. That's the Koi Fish Galaxy. And this one's located on the way back from Gamma down to Beta at the turn of the bend in Coma. It's, I think it's about, what did I say? 2 degrees. So it's 2 degrees east. This one's a large, oblique, it's kind of a spiral galaxy, has a very unusual coarse sort of a structure. It should be visible in 4-inch telescopes or bigger. Discovered by William Herschel on April 11th of 1785 is number 92 on its class number 1. It's an easy star hop from the Gamma star, just sort of basically 1.5 or so fields of view east of that star back towards Beta, as I mentioned. So you want to use your averted vision and various eyepieces, various magnifications. See if you can see the core, tease out some of the complicated structure. You can see there's some star forming, brighter knots of star forming region around it. And there are also some field stars embedded on the disk, which is something else to look for. This one's about 27 million light years away. All right, next up, we've got NGC 4725. Go here. So this one's in a bit of an oasis or an empty spot. You can get yourself kind of in the neighborhood by making a triangle below Beta and Gamma. This is a nice, bright, barred spiral galaxy with this unique ring structure around it. So that should make it visible in, actually it's been reported to be visible in big binoculars if you've got very good sky conditions, but certainly any good quality telescope of any aperture should be able to pick it up. As I said, this one's really close to the North Galactic Pole. And one of the ways you can actually get there is to use these 2 stars, Polaris Galacticus Borealis and the Galacticus Australis. Those 2 stars make a neat little triangle with this galaxy. You can go up 90 degrees to them and head down. This was discovered by William Herschel on April 6th of 1785. As I said, it's a little ways between the line. If you want to do it another way, you could also go from Beta to Denebola and just stop about 5 degrees from Beta. That's another way you could get into the right neighborhood. There's actually a nice orange double star, Struve 1684, in the same field of view. Let's go into the eyepiece field of view. Here you go. There's the double star sitting off to the right here. So try different magnifications. This one will get bigger with averted vision, so that's fun. And you've also got some other galaxies in the neighborhood that you can look out for as well. This one's about 42 million light years away. All right, a couple more here. We've got another 2 for 1. This is the Crowbar and the Whale. These are these 2 galaxies that are situated in Canis Venatici. They're together. They'll share the eyepiece field of view. And let's get to the Whale galaxy first. So this one's very famous. You've probably seen this one written up a lot. It's the edge-on distorted barred spiral galaxy with a tiny companion galaxy just near it. And it sort of resembles a whale or maybe that alien craft from Star Trek 4. So you've got the main galaxy is quite bright, should be visible in big binoculars again. Any quality telescope should be able to see it. Discovered by William Herschel back on March 20th of 1787. It is located You can see there's our Gamma Coma Berenices again, 5.3 degrees northeast of that star. And it's on the direction, or in the direction from there towards the bright star Cor Coralis. So if you can see those two stars, you can stop basically around halfway between them and then scan just a little bit to the below that midpoint. And you should get yourself in that neighborhood to see it. There's some other brighter stars in the neighborhood as well that can get you zoomed in. So this is going to be nice at low magnification where you're going to get both galaxies at the same time, but averted vision will help you to see the spouting water or the secondary galaxy, NGC 4627. So you want to note its orientation, its shape, and see if you can see the little galaxy above it. That one's about 25 million light years away. And last up, we've got the crowbar or hockey stick. That's NGC 4, 6, 5, 6, and 7. It was actually designated as two different objects when William Herschel discovered it. So this one is discovered by William Herschel on March 20th of 1787. And he thought he saw two different pieces to it. So he gave it two numbers. To get there, basically get yourself to the whale first, and then you can easily find this object from there. You want to use averted vision. I would recommend magnifying a little bit more. So that's at 35x. Let's look at it at let's look at it at 65. That gets you a nice size view when it's at about 65 power. So when you're looking at it, see how far you can, see if you can see the bent end very well, and then also see how far you can see the opposite end because it sort of fades out with distance. So that's another great one to check out. So that one's about 23.5 million light years away. And that's our group for this time. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but there you go.
Thank you for that, Chris. Nice to hear about space stuff again.
Good. Well, I think we're on time. Thank you, Jenna, for coming back. Really, it was really fun to reconnect. Hopefully we can do some more of these.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me back. I had a really great time. It was nice to see everybody again. Chris, thank you for continuing this on the way you do. You've been doing such great work for so long. You've outlasted the entire national office staff. So you're doing great. And cool. I'm so glad that we have you and we have everyone who joins us to make this what it is. I'm looking forward to being here again soon.
All right, everybody. Stay tuned. We've got some neat ones coming up. So we'll see you soon, everyone. Keep looking up.
Yeah, enjoy